Hi there! Welcome to Apple World. Dakota Johnson has a family foundation that is loaded up with stars, and just right, she's getting her time at the center of attention. Yet one thing a great many people don't know is the way her relationship with Antonio Banderas became one of the defining moments in her day-to-day existence. Dakota has uncovered how her stepfather completely changed her. And we have all the subtleties, albeit many individuals don't have the foggiest idea about that. Antonio Banderas is Dakota Johnson's ex-stepfather. The idea of their relationship today is significantly seriously astonishing. The two have kept an exceptionally endearing relationship in the years since Antonio and Dakota's mom, Melanie Griffith, have been separated from. Dakota initially met Antonio Banderas when she was only 6 years of age. Her folks, where Johnson and Melanie Griffith were separated from Hollywood 2 or 3. A partition like that is sufficient to cause devastation inside a family that had all kids. However, their boat was shaken again before at last thinking of itself when Melanie Griffith previously became engaged with bandit entertainer and Hollywood legend Antonio Banderas. Dakota and her sibling didn't exactly heat up to having another dad. It didn't actually help that Antonio himself was unpracticed about parenthood since he was a solitary young fellow thriving. However, he was focused on them, and he demonstrated it right from the outset of his relationship with Melanie at the time. It was pretty much a loosely held bit of information that Melanie Griffith and Ware Johnson's marriage was bothered with substance misuse undertakings and liquor addiction, and this was meaningfully affecting their kids, yet the muddled circumstance was adequately not to deter Antonio from seeking after his affections for Melanie. After her separation, he met Melanie Griffith when they featured in the 1995 rom-com film Excessively, and he had fallen for her blemishes and all. In May 1996, Antonio Banderas wedded Melanie Griffith, and he acknowledged the obligation of being a dad to her youngsters. Earnestly he cherished my mom and my kin and I so savagely, thus huge, thus boisterous, that it would change each of our lives everlastingly. Dakota and her sibling Alexander had a rough youth up until that point, yet Antonio had the option to give them a steady, strong family foundation, one that he, at the end of the day, hadn't delighted in. While growing up, my mom wedded a man who brought an extraordinary, splendid light, an entirely different universe of imagination and culture, and one surprisingly supernatural younger sibling into our family. Antonio turned into an anchor in her life at a crucial time, and the youngsters got used to him when obviously he needed them in his day-to-day existence. For the long stretch discussing the experience, Antonio told R up out of nowhere, "I had a 6-year-old young lady, a 10-year-old kid, and Stella showed up very quickly. They required strong ground in which the A could develop as before. Long as I understood that, I began laying out my relationship, giving them security, gradually doing the dad thing. He was their stepfather." However, Antonio Banderas chose to move forward in additional ways than was required from any young fellow in his position. He had steady confidence in his new family, and he was prepared to do anything to help them out. As Melanie kept on battling with dependence during their 20-year marriage, Antonio stayed unshaken, and he was an emotional supportive network for the family through everything. In a meeting, he referenced that, "We did every one of the treatments together. The children, everyone. It was an extremely remarkable encounter. Not just for Melanie, it was exceptionally compensating at the end anyway. Melanie's addictions were by all accounts not the only piece of Dakota's childhood that Antonio Banderas decidedly affected. Like most teens, Dakota was somewhere down in the hooks of her young tension and managing feelings that were greater than she could deal with. Antonio assisted her with getting the assistance she expected to explore them and come out better, personally perceiving the endeavors he made and the feelings he contributed to cheer her up. Dakota has frequently thought back on how fantastic he was as a dad. "I got a reward father who I understood that after some time is really quite possibly of the most persuasive individual in my entire life, albeit the Puss in Boots entertainer and her mom have been separated." Beginning around 2015, Dakota actually talks affectionately about her relationship with Antonio Banderas, and he responds her opinions as he told individuals, "I was there since I love their mom, and I'm completely taken with their mom, and they were the main piece of what she accompanied." Very soon, they comprehended that they were a youthful father and girl who developed next to each other inside a mixed family. However, they fostered a closeness that some dad-little girl connections in conventional families can merely fantasize about having. Antonio has upheld his ex-step-girl from the second he met her, and he keeps on doing so even a very long time after the separation. that ought to have removed their relationship. Antonio Banderas never neglects to communicate how pleased he is of Dakota, her gift, and her accomplishments. I met her when she was 5 years old. I followed each and every step of it. I'm so glad for her. I saw her a few days ago in Toronto, and she looks as I said in the informal communities. When I put an image of her and myself, I put my brilliant Dakota there. A great many people on the planet didn't have the foggiest idea about Dakota's name until she assumed the job of Anastasia Steele in the 50 Shades of Dark set of 3. Yet the splendid entertainer and model previously played a couple of parts under her sleeve before the title-breaking set off 3, and she comes from a foundation of gifted top-notch entertainers. As a matter of fact, her grandma, Tippi Hedren, is a Hollywood symbol. Dakota has been on the honorary pathway longer than the vast majority understand, and she's been planning for a profession in representing much longer than that, much like families where the guardians are specialists and the kids are likewise specialists. Dakota recalls the assumptions she made about her vocational decision. I thought this is exactly what my family does. It resembles my father's being a legal counselor, so I'm an attorney. With the exception of that, it doesn't typically work that way. Dakota Johnson generally realized she would wind up in the film business, yet while she had those assumptions, Antonio Banderas and Melanie Griffin were mindful about dealing with her sudden openness to the business. They were both taught, and they made it something fundamental for Dakota to accomplish. Because of this, she didn't have her most memorable tryout until after she finished her secondary school training past her family foundation. Dakota Johnson had the option to make incredible progress on account of her commitment to her art as part of this devotion.